Hey everyone, Selwyn here from WynnStrength.com. On this video I'll be doing day 2 of the final phase of my own program. Today we're actually focusing on the deadlift as a prime mover, and we'll be doing some squat and deadlift accessories for our second giant set. So we're getting through the warm-ups now. We'll be doing 8x3. If you've been following my training so far, you notice I started off at 4x8s, then we did 5x5s, and now we're going to 8x3s. So we're moving down the spectrum from higher reps to middle reps. Now we're doing some low reps, but we've increased the tonnage, hopefully, by splitting that up into doing some heavy triples. So the main concept behind it is we're doing some giant sets, so we're going to do some deadlifts followed with some kettlebell swings to get that post-activation potentiation, which I'll go into a little bit later, and then just some abs to fire up those abs. One thing I would recommend is to increase the amount of direct ab work you're actually doing throughout the week. I've noticed my lifts have become a little bit more solid is the best way to describe it. I'm not as wobbly in the hips as I used to be, so it feels like I'm getting a bit more power transfer from my feet to the weights. So whether that be the squat, the bench press, or the overhead press. Now they're not giant leaps and bounds in strength, but the feeling of the lift just feels a little bit more solid than it has in the past, and I think that's been attributed to the direct ab movements that I've been doing. And I'm doing usually 1 to 2 abs every single workout, but not till failure, because you don't want to overstress the abdomen. And the second giant set of the day will be some SSB squats, some stiff-legged deadlifts, followed with some pull-ups. I have been dealing with some shoulder issues, so I do like to throw in some pull-ups and chin-ups where possible, and that way I found personally it's helped with my shoulder issues, and it's really helped to reinforce that shoulder joint. Just that, not only the point of strengthening the lats, but also just the hanging. So hanging from a static hang just with your arms above you for a couple of seconds at the end and the start of each set just really helps to stretch out that shoulder girdle. That's just personal experience. Whether that's actually doing anything structurally or scientifically, I don't know if it is, but just the feeling of it, the perception of pain is decreased after a couple of weeks of just hanging there. So we'll continue with the workout and we'll talk about some more stuff along the way. So I guess the question becomes, what is post-activation potentiation theory? Basically, it's a theory that talks about muscle recruitment and a way to activate more muscle fibers without having to go all the way to failure necessarily. So there's a generally supported theory that the closer we get to failure, the more muscle fibers we activate. If we take extreme examples, we'll take lifting up a pencil. Isn't that heavy, so you don't recruit as many muscle fibers because it's not necessary to. Your body only wants to recruit the fibers that are needed. I don't need to exert all of my effort when picking up a glass of water or a pencil. Now we contrast that with trying to lift a heavy single one time, probably 101% of a tested 1 rep max. So we're trying to go over and above what we normally do. Say it's a life or death situation. Really extreme case scenario, but in all likelihood we're probably going to activate all of our muscle fibers because we're probably in a fight or flight response. We have adrenaline rushing and our body needs to survive, so we're going to activate every single muscle fiber. Now, muscle growth and strength development happens somewhere in between those two spectrums, obviously closer to the upper end of that, near 100% maximum, but we can't always put ourselves in a life or death situation and expect to grow muscle day in, day out. So we need to find a nice balance between nothing and everything. So what that means is, general supported theory is that anything above 60% or 75% of a 1 rep max is going to help elicit some muscle gains. So what we want to do is always kind of work in that range for the working rep ranges, hence why we have like heavy singles, triples, 5s, all the way up to like 12s and 15s. Now once we get up to, say we're going to do sets of 100 for some unknown reason, that's not going to be that effective at developing strength or muscle. It's going to be more effective at developing endurance and cardiovascular response. So with that in mind, that's off the table. That's another extreme. Now we can do heavy 5s, 5x5, do a lot of volume. One way the post-activation theory purports that we do a heavy, slow-moving single, and then we immediately contrast that with a fast-moving plyo movement. So for example, we'll do squats and box jumps, or we'll do squats and sprints. We'll do deadlifts and kettlebell swings. We'll do deadlifts and some banded jumps horizontally, lateral jumps, bench press, push-ups, military press, and push press. We're going to want to contrast these things so that the heavy slow movements activate some of our fibers, and then that quick fast movement with a moderate weight will actually help activate the rest of it, because we're already in a fatigue state by doing the heavy sets, and then after that we're doing not so heavy sets really quickly to activate the rest of the muscle fibers. Now, it is still called a theory, that's why it's not used everywhere and not everyone does it, but for every now and then it's kind of nice to throw in there. Even if it doesn't work, it is a nice break from regular training, and I just enjoy having to split up some heavy movements with some fast movements. You can do it like the way I'm doing it with some kettlebell swings and deadlifts. It's really up to your imagination. You can do, like I said before, there's countless examples of how you can do it. It's really up to you how you want to activate that. You can even do it if you have access to 2 barbells and some bands and chains, heavy deadlifts, and then some really fast deadlifts in the. You really want to do it with minimal break in between. That way you're really activating, you're really working in a fatigue state for the speed reps. You don't want to be in a fresh state for the speed reps for this purpose. Now, there are other purposes, like the west side conjugate method, where you do want to be in a fresh state for the speed work. Olympic movements, you definitely want to be in a fresh state for those explosive movements. But if you are trying to access the post-activation potentiation theory, you really want to be in a fatigue state, which is drawn directly after doing a heavy set like this.